When we decided to take on inner life issues in the context of this pluralistic secular society, we had to think very carefully about the metaphors that we wanted to use to invite people into what is essentially a spiritual journey, because we wanted those metaphors to be open and generous, respectful of all traditions and of people who have no tradition, but at the same time, metaphors that would call our attention to difficult and hopeful questions. And I feel very blessed, really, in the fact that we sort of stumbled across the seasonal metaphors as ways to do that, and they have served us remarkably well. The themes we use are the themes of the four seasons, the metaphors of the four seasons. We start in the fall, where the fundamental theme is the seed of true self. The fall is when nature is planting her seeds. And so we invite people to think about what seed was planted when you were born. What are those birthright gifts? What is that original selfhood that you arrived with that now, 30, 40, 50 years later, you may be some distance from? Let's go back and try to recall and reclaim that seed. In the winter, of course, those seeds are buried and it feels like they're dead and gone. But the truth is that in winter there's a lot happening underground that is awaiting a season of rebirth. So the questions we ask in the winter have to do with death and dying, dormancy and renewal. And it's a fascinating inner life question. That which feels dead or dying in me, is it in fact going into a period of dormancy and awaiting a season of rebirth? And teachers have found the most wonderful things in coming to terms with what is dormant inside of them, wonderful in the sense that they're now able to look at their students through new eyes, because what is a teenager but a bundle of dormancies? In the spring, the theme we use is the flowering of paradox. That is, what happens in spring is utterly paradoxical, that out of that which seemed frozen and dead, there is this proliferation of new life. And it's very, but it itself is very paradoxical, because spring, before it gets beautiful, is just plug ugly. It's mud and muck, and we're all trying to keep it off of our shoes and out of the houses. But the mud and the muck have a role to play in the generation of beauty. It's that humus, which is also about humility, that is the ground in which the flower grows. And then in the summer, we speak about the season of abundance and harvest. So the question now becomes, what is it that is growing abundantly in my life out of this long journey through fall, winter, and spring that is meant to be harvested, to serve, to feed others? So we've discovered that these seasonal themes and metaphors create the most generous room for people of many different traditions and no tradition at all to deal with real issues of the inner life, to do so in a language that doesn't offend them or doesn't marginalize them, and eventually allows them to come into the language, their own language, that has most meaning for them. It's a very amazing way to come at deep inner life issues, keeping people focused on things that matter, and yet at the same time doing that in a way that everyone feels honored by in their particular tradition.